and gentlemen. Come on. Thank you. Thank you. I've noticed all of you have had breakfast, so I'll just say it one more time. Those that haven't had breakfast here, they told me they ate before they came here. Not sure why, because when you're called for breakfast meeting, you expect that breakfast to be served. So I'll do it again. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Good morning to our online audience as well. We're joined in by audiences via LinkedIn, YouTube, and our colleagues are also streaming in using Microsoft Teams. Welcome to our financial results announcement. It's become tradition that every single year we have to come back here and give accountability. So take this as our report card for 2023. It's going to be a short and sweet program, but feel free to make it as long as you want. I can see people like Martin Luther are ready to ask questions even before we get started. That's why we're here, and we're ready to answer those questions. Before we start, I would like to begin by introducing members of the management team for Absa that are here. They've shown up in large numbers because they're the ones that deliver these results. So in no particular order, I'll start from, I think, the left. David Kahwa Bumal, he's our Director for Compliance. Next to David is Musa Jallo. He's our Director for Retail and Business Banking. Then we have Guy Chimboa Lutaya. He's our Chief Risk Officer. David Wandera, he's an Executive Director as well as the Head of Financial Markets. I'll go to the back. I don't know why they even decided to sit at the back. We had reserved these seats just in case the questions are answered, but either way. We have Edward Ochen. He's our Director, Legal and Company Secretary. Next to Edward, we have Dixon. Dixon is our auditor. He keeps us in check. And then we have Patricia Nshemerere, who is our Chief Operations Officer. Peter Thaddeus Mbowa, who is our Treasurer, or Director Treasury. And then we have Irene Mutiaba Kabiri, Mrs. She's the Director, Corporate and Investment Banking. We also have Michael Seguya, who you'll be hearing a lot from today. He's an Executive Director and also the CFO. He'll break down the numbers. Mumba needs no introduction. I will also not introduce the gentleman next to him because of protocol. I'll invite Mumba to introduce him when he's making his remarks. But allow me to also recognize our finance colleagues that are here. Today is also as much their day. They've done a lot of work in putting the numbers together and the reporting. So Emmanuel Chiberu. Emmanuel, you've just changed roles, so if I introduce you as the financial controller, but they are seated next to each other. One is doing the other's role. We have Tony Malay, who's just joined us as the financial controller. So you're all welcome, and we shall get started. To kick us off, allow me to invite our Managing Director, Mumba, to set the context, take us through how we've performed against strategy, and then after that, he will take up one of those hot seats. Mumba, you're welcome.
Thank you, Helen. To the members of the Board of Directors of Absa Bank Uganda, represented by Mr. George Opio. Thank you, George, for coming through. George also doubles as the chairman of the audit committee of Absa Bank Uganda board. The members of the country management committee, our colleagues from the Fourth Estate, the members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, must I just say, odd protocol observed, a very good morning to each and every one of you. Director of Programs indicated these sessions are important to us as an institution because they allow us to share with yourselves the performance of the bank in order to give an account of progress that we are making towards delivering on our strategy and also contributing to the wider cause of growing our economy and its people. I must appreciate the support that we continuously get from the media, and I would also want to thank you once again for making time to come through and support us during this annual event. It is always encouraging to know that you have partners that you can count on times such as this. The agenda for the day is to review our scorecard for the previous year, provide you with insights into our business performance across various key parameters, and how we supported our customers, business partners, and overall, our contribution to Uganda's economy at large. I am pleased to be joined by a strong team of colleagues at Absa with whom I work. Helen introduced the executive leadership team, but beyond the executive leadership team, there are 1,000 other colleagues that support us on a daily basis to serve our customers. As they say, the true measure of any leader is often, as they say, reflected in the quality of the team and the people they surround themselves with. And I'm extremely proud to superintend over one of the best teams in the Uganda banking sector. I know I'll sound like a broken record, but when you're proud, it should show. I'm passionate about surrounding myself with great people, and I'm passionate about working with people who are driven by purpose. And that greater purpose is to serve or empower our customers across the continent. Looking back at 2023, I would say it was both a challenging and rewarding year in equal measure. And I will elaborate further during our conversation post our submission to yourselves. From a macroeconomic context, 2023 was indeed a tough year, but Uganda's economy remained resilient in spite of facing challenges that are facing the global economy, including high inflation and slower global growth prospects. According to the Ministry of Finance, the economy grew by 5.2% in 2023, an improvement from the 4.6% that was delivered or achieved in the previous year. Increased investment in the oil and gas sector as a result of the developments such as the final investment decision, a rebound in tourism, and growth in exports are amongst the factors that supported economic growth. The economy continued to be impacted by increased inflationary pressures, driving a notable surge in overall price levels. Externally, escalating international oil prices played a pivotal role, causing a consistent rise in local fuel costs. At a local level, inflation fell below the Bank of Uganda's target rate of 5% by June 2023, thankful to lower international commodity prices, fiscal consolidation, and tight monetary policy. Accordingly, private consumption increased, while public investment was scaled back as the fiscal space narrowed and private investment retracted in response to a tight monetary stance throughout the fiscal year. As Absa Uganda, driven by our purpose of empowering Africa's tomorrow together, one story at a time, we remain steadfast in our commitment to support our customers even through these challenging times. We are firm believers in the shared value philosophy, and our financial performance is not just a reflection of growth at Absa, but growth of our customers and all those within our value chain and the economy at large. Our CFO, Michael, will delve deeper into the financial statements, but I'll provide an overview of our performance. Our revenue grew by 15.6%, or 64 billion, to end the year at 474 billion, driven by strong growth in our transactional banking and trading income business that grew by 42%. I thought that deserves a round of applause. We reported a profit after tax of 146 billion Ugandan shillings, delivering a strong return on investment for our shareholders of around 20% in terms of return on equity. The growth in profit is attributed largely by the revenue growth from both funded and non-funded income. And like I said, largely driven by business recovery and improved economic environment. The bank, in addition, realized a growth of 12.9% in customer loans and advances, closing the year 2023 at 1.78 trillion Ugandan shillings. That is a growth of around 200 billion year on year. Equally, on a positive note, from a customer deposit perspective, we grew by 16.3% on a year-on-year basis, closing the year at 2.9 trillion Ugandan shilling, representing a growth of around 400 billion Ugandan shillings, which reflects our continued commitment to meet our customers' needs. As we continue to strive to be an enabler for customer growth as part of our strategy, we continued to support our customers' growth ambitions by extending credit, as I've indicated, to meet both personal and business financing needs. We continue to see increased customer confidence in Absa, evidenced by a 30% year-on-year increase in customer banking transactions and increased utilization of trade instruments, which grew by 36% on a year-on-year basis. With the resurgence of economic activity, we saw an increased customer uptake of our working capital and trade solutions to meet their business financing needs. I think if you see economic reports around growth in exports, you will see that there's been a strong play in terms of agricultural export growth, which speaks to the trade and working capital appetite. As a bank keen to play a role in supporting economic growth, we played our part by financing opportunities within key sectors that drove economic activities. Our total lending to the agriculture sector, as at the end of 2023, stood at 249 billion Ugandan shillings, representing a 13% portion of our total loan book. Our trade book ended at 289 billion Ugandan shillings, representing 14% of all loans advanced, with manufacturing at 12%, with credit worth around 232 billion shillings. From a personal loans perspective, which accounts for about 24% of our portfolio, the total disbursements or total loan portfolio to individuals and households stood at 453 billion Ugandan shillings, which accounts for 24%. You will see that in terms of distribution, our loan book is skewed towards corporate entities and SMEs, which account for an overall 76% of our 1.78 trillion loan book. We saw many more of our customers take up instruments, as I indicated, including working capital requirements, asset finance, and other trade instruments to finance their business financing needs. We dispersed more loans, mainly driven by an increased demand from customers for working capital requirements. Our trade loans and overdraft utilization yielded 19% and 29% growth, respectively. This reflects that our efforts towards sustained customer engagement to provide the necessary business and financial advisory services are paying off as we witness businesses take up various credit instruments to support their business financing and growth needs. We were also part of a landmark transaction, the Airtel Uganda IPO, providing our services as the lead transaction advisor. Through this, we contributed to growing Uganda's equity markets, strengthening not just Airtel's capital position, but the national economy as well. At Absa, we believe that financial markets are vital to Africa's growth, providing an opportunity to tap into domestic capital, but also be better positions to access global capital. The 2023 Absa Africa Financial Index that we presented in February of this year ranked Uganda as the highest growing financial market within the East African region. And it was ranked fourth on the continent, scoring 63% behind investment powerhouses such as South Africa that came in at 88%, Mauritius 77%, and economic powerhouse Nigeria at 67%. So we are amongst the top 4 in terms of strength of financial markets when benchmarked against 26 countries on the African continent. Together with our partners, we played a role towards enhancing bilateral trade relations between Uganda and South Africa to support the growth of intra-Africa trade. The summit gave us an opportunity to leverage our Pan-African footprint and expertise to support Uganda to take advantage of the various opportunities to trade with South Africa. Investing in our people, as I indicated, is something that we will continue to do. And I can boldly say that at Absa, our people are our strength. They drive our competitive advantage, enabling us to better serve and show up for our customers on a daily basis. Our business strategy to invest in the growth of our people as a key enabler for business growth has indeed paid off over the years and continues to pay off. In 2023, Absa Bank Uganda was ranked number 1 across the Absa Group in the Absa Colleague Experience Survey. The key performance indicators measured were our colleague experience, employee job satisfaction, employee advocacy, and staff sentiment. The survey evaluates the bank's performance towards creating and nurturing an unparalleled colleague experience. And just for context, the Absa Group comprises 35,000 employees and 12 countries outside of South Africa where we are headquartered. And for a second year running, I am humble and proud to say we were the best on the continent, and I say that with utmost humility. Whilst we have declared a 23% growth in total costs in 2023, which was largely driven by our investments in our people, our branch network, our digital systems, all with the goal to serve our customers better, we are resolute in our continued desire to invest in growing our people and the experience of our customers. As they say, charity begins at home, and I am pleased to lead an organization that prioritizes employee experience. This has helped us to attract and retain the best pool of talent in the market. Thank you. We take pride in having accomplished an employee net promoter score of 63%, having 82% of our staff being delighted and satisfied to work with us, and achieving an overall colleague experience index of 79%. So by all purposes and intent, those are very strong scores. The key priority indicators informing these scores also include remuneration, leadership role modeling, innovation, autonomy, diversity and inclusion, feedback and recognition, to mention but a few. In addition to the various aspects of growing our people and the business that we run, we also focus on playing an important role in society. Absa is driven by a commitment to play a shaping role in our nation's growth and sustainability. We are cognizant of the large array of societal challenges facing our country. Our commitment to being a force for good and the sustainability journey that we have embarked on is driven by the philosophy to create a shared value in the communities where we operate. Through our robust network and wide range of financial platforms, we facilitate the government of Uganda's efforts in collection of taxes and fees to achieve greater tax compliance. We diligently pay our taxes and contributed 110 billion Ugandan shillings to the national treasury in 2023. In a move to impart financial literacy skills to undeserved communities, we reached over 46,000 people with financial education. 340,590 trees were planted under our environmental conservation efforts in partnership with like-minded partners. A 30% energy saving initiative was achieved through the adoption of more environmentally friendly sources of energy throughout our operations. In advancing financial inclusion through entrepreneurship, 530 business owners were trained under the Absa SME Academy in partnership with Enterprise Uganda. We are intentional on reaching people in the last mile with banking solutions. Over 1.6 million customer transactions were posted via our agency banking distribution network in 2023 across our various over 1,500 locations on a countrywide basis. In addition to this, we disbursed mortgages worth 40 billion Ugandan shillings to support people access proper housing and also become economically empowered. Under the Absa Uganda Scholarship Scheme, 160 million was spent on Absa scholars, where 69 youth were supported. The last cohort of 5 students graduated in 2023 and have all gotten employment. 135 million worth of equipment was donated to Cavalier Police Training School for their resource training center. We collected about 200 million Ugandan shillings through the Absa KH3 Seven Hills Run in 2023, which positively impacted 2,647 women and girls. The funds were put towards school fees, skilling, and menstrual health management under the cause to keep the girl child in school. Under our skills development program, Absa Ready to Work, 2,566 youths were prepared for work readiness. This brings the total of 9,000 to the youths that have accessed this free online program that we call Ready to Work, that empowers the youth with people skills, money skills, entrepreneurial skills, and work skills. I do implore all our youth to continuously access this program on our website, which is absolutely free and gives you certification in terms of ready-to-work skills around those 4 areas. We will continue to play a shaping role in society, and we remain committed to impacting the Ugandan economy, not only from a financial services perspective, but also from a social perspective to address societal needs. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I thank you for your attention, and I will call upon Michael, our CFO, to give his remarks around the detail surrounding our performance for 2023. I thank you.
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much, Mumba, for those remarks. I'm here to tell a good story, and a story about numbers. It was a great year. 2023 was a great year for Absa. And as Mumba has alluded to, we did post very good numbers, broken down this way. So yes, our revenue grew by 15.6%. Biggest driver to that was the fact that our balance sheet on the whole grew as well. You could see double digits there. I think fundamentally driven by the fact that we also saw pressure points around interest margins, where customers, of course, the cost of raising liabilities was high, hence that net interest income growing by 2%. But the biggest driver of our performance was the non-funded income, which is a reflection of the trust our customers have in us, fundamentally driven by the increased banking transactions. We also provided a number of solutions in trying to ensure that we hedge our customers' risk in terms of FX, hence posting 42% to that effect. This is a reflection to show that customers continue to trust us for provisions of solutions, and hence that very good result that we are seeing across. Looking at the expense side, we did see a good growth of about 23%, fundamentally driven by the story Mumba was talking about. We also had a scheme as Absa where our employees become part of the shareholding of the bank. So that is part of the drivers of that cost. But by and large, our cost-to-income ratio remained within range. Our profitability, as Mumba has told you, we have grown to 146 billion shillings. Very good performance considering the economic times. But more importantly, our return on equity remaining above 20%, and those are ratios that we more or less kept over the last years. Looking at the balance sheet, customer assets, as we have alluded to earlier, 13% growth in terms of assets. We've seen a lot of mortgages come through, the appetite and demand for personal lending, and as Mumba alluded to, manufacturing and trade. You'll see the numbers as we look at the trends going forward. But more importantly, the fact that our customers still trust us with their money. And this is reflected in the growth we see on the liabilities, where we're seeing 16% growth year on year. The quality of our lending has continued to improve. We are seeing impairment ratios of close to zero. We had 0.8 last year in terms of billion shillings. We are now talking about a net of about 2.4. And that's just 0.47% as a loss ratio that we did post. This is a reflection of the careful lending policies we've got to try and ensure that we keep our customers' funds and we keep the bank sound. The next graph there is really to try and give us a perspective in terms of trend. You can clearly see we have posting a CAGR of close to 15% year on year. So the great performance, the numbers that we are posting is really a reflection of a story we have had over the years. So from 2020 coming out of COVID, clearly showing that the bank has stepped out into that turbulent time to try and ensure that we land the numbers. Hence that CAGR growth of 14.5%, and remembering that we did post close to 16 in the last year alone. The story around costs is really a reflection of ensuring that we invest in systems. IT world is quite expensive, and to try and ensure that we are competitive on the channels, hence that growth of about 10% year on year. And that's something that we need to do to try and ensure that we serve our customers better and we provide better channels that will provide the necessary convenience for our customers. Excuse me. There's another good story there, posting 53% growth on PAT. Clearly, the challenges we had care of COVID, we're more or less out of that. We did post some impairment come 2020, but that CAGR of 53% over the 4 years is a reflection that the bank continues to grow and we continue to see better results. That trend has continued even just in the last 3 years where we're posting over 20% CAGR in terms of growth. As I did allude to, the return on equity has continued. Return on equity is the relationship in terms of what we are giving our shareholders. So we are able to post 20%. If you had a similar amount of money and you chose to invest in government securities, you probably will be getting about 16%. So clearly, this is showing that we are providing a good return to our shareholders, and it's a reflection of the positive results that we continue to have. The cost-to-income ratio is a reflection of how we manage our costs vis-a-vis the increment in revenues. We are at 60%. We had some strategic investment in terms of people, channels, technology that did deliver the numbers. And that is a number that we continue to monitor. And clearly that growth in revenue is a reflection of the trust our customers continue to give us. I think looking at the balance sheet side, very good story there. We did allude to the fact that we posted close to 13% last year, 2020 to 2023. That number has continued to grow over the 10 years. I think coming out of COVID and ensuring that we support the economy, we have posted tremendous growth in terms of our lending portfolio. And that's also reflected in the fact that we are carefully landing that in the impairment numbers that we have posted. On the customer deposit side, I want to emphasize, to reflect on the fact that 2023 saw a 16% growth, whereas we're reflecting a 6.6% over the 4 years. We've also had some strategic initiatives to try and ensure that we keep competitive balance sheets in terms of costs. So we've been careful to attract those deposits that are ready to support as part of our balance sheet structure. But the key message there is the fact that the customers, specifically last year, we did see very good numbers in terms of 16% and 6% or 7% CAGR for the last 4 years. This slide here is really to tell us the story around the loans vis-a-vis the non-performing loans. As you have seen coming out of COVID, we had a non-performing portfolio of about 235 billion shillings. The team here has continued to manage that. That has come down to 185, which is a reflection that that is down by 50 billion shillings. And a very good performance in terms of the teams that are handling the recoveries. But we've also seen that that CAGR for the last 3 years in terms of loan portfolio is about 15% coming off 2021. The graph in the extreme right, for your sake, reflects the performance in terms of impairment. And I did share the very good story where we are coming from impairment of about 61 billion shillings. That's a sign of what was going through the COVID period, that coming down all the way to 14. We took a deliberate choice to ensure that we impair, we provide for those loans, for those customers where we felt that COVID didn't treat them well. But the story, which is a reflection of the good story I'm talking about, is the fact that for the last 2 years, that number has come close to zero. 1 and 2, that's a reflection of the quality of lending that we are doing, but more importantly, the fact that we continue to attract customers that are willing to pay back, but the teams have good engagements with these customers, and that's the reflection that we are seeing on those 2 slides. I would want to say that for the customers, thank you for banking with us. Thank you for trusting us. We continue to share these great results, and we continue to serve you as we invest in systems that will provide competitive service to you. Thank you very much.
Let's clap for Mumba and Michael once more. It's very rewarding when you hear your CFO happy that the cost grew. So but there's some key numbers I think that are worth, celebrating, not so? 475 billion revenue. You can clap. 146 billion PAT, or profit after tax. 1.8 trillion assets. 2.8 trillion liabilities. Number 1 in colleague experience. Over 300,000 trees planted. 30% saved in energy consumption. Over 76,000 people reached when it comes to financial education and literacy. Those are very good numbers. They're worth celebrating. So having said that, we're going to go into Q&A, and I expect the questions to revolve around those numbers that I have shared. But now I think this is the moment that the journalists have been waiting for. The members of the Fourth Estate, once you want to ask a question, just stand up or raise your hand so that we can know how many microphones need to go around. I have a team at the back that will help me with that. You can introduce yourself and then pose the question. So the floor is now open.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Wakab Eric. I work with Next Media Services, NBS in particular. My questions, I have about two, and they all go to the MD. One is about how does Absa Bank Uganda plan to sustain or improve upon its financial performance in the coming year? Then the other one is about how does Absa Bank Uganda plan to address any challenges identified in its financial year results of 2023? Thank you.
We'll take a couple of more questions before we respond.
Yes, morning. My name is Ali Toha from New Vision. Thanks for the numbers. I just have 2-3 questions. One is on, I wanted you to share your experience in terms of the regulatory environment that we saw, because Uganda was grey listed and the banks had to pull some strings on customers, block accounts. You know, how was that experience for you? Currently, I understand a bank can block a customer's account when they've not maybe filed the annual returns to URSB and things like that. But generally, I just wanted you to speak about the regulatory environment and how it has impacted maybe growth, among others. The other is on the cost. Kindly share. You highlighted on a presentation a significant one of legal cost, though you didn't talk about it. And you also mentioned something in terms of customers being a part of the bank. I don't know, did they purchase shares in the bank? Just clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Sierra Kabona. I'm from the East African. The MDs talked about the lending being skewed towards SMEs and corporates. Could you please break for us the numbers? What percentage did you lend to SMEs and the total amounts lent to the SMEs and then the corporates? Also, as an industrial player, the industry has had some bit of exits. We have seen some people being downgraded. In your conversations as CEOs of banks, where does this recapitalization take the industry to? If I had my bank, it has folded, one has exited, but we have Absa that managed to recapitalize. Thank you so much.
I think these are quite many. We can take these on as the rest think through the questions. Momba, I'll leave you to distribute as you see, please.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks. So, Eric from NBS. I think the first question was to say, how do we plan to improve in the coming years? And how do we intend to address the challenges in the results? I think from our perspective, what is key is to have clarity in terms of strategy. And from a strategy perspective, we are quite clear that we will continue to focus on growth, we will continue to focus on efficiency, and continue to focus on returns. So if you look at the trajectory in terms of the momentum that we have built up over the last 4 years, that's what we've been focusing on. The first thing that needed to be done, I think you saw a lot of emphasis on the people side. Once you have the right team, you have a clear strategy, it is really about execution. So we plan to improve on our performance relative to the previous year by continuing to execute on our 3-year strategy that runs until 2025. Early new vision, experience on regulatory matters. I think one of the things that when you look at the Absa Financial Markets Index, we talk about the strength of financial markets. And part of that is the access to information, a strong, robust regulatory environment that complies with a number of international agreements. So I would say that nothing comes as a surprise in this particular market. We interface or converse with the regulator on a regular basis. We have monthly engagement meetings that are chaired by, the governor of the central bank. We have access to the executive director supervision. His doors are always open to support the banks, and really just to converse and exchange views in terms of what is happening in the regulatory environment. So from a compliance perspective, I would say there is a lot of openness. There is a lot of forewarning in terms of things that are coming up. I think there is a question that has been asked on capital. When the June 2023 deadline was set for capital compliance, that had been informed, or we had been sounded of that almost 36 months, I think 24 to 36 months earlier. So it's not something that was just sprung up on the Absa Bank, but all banks state their details as prescribed on Form 1 that the URSB prescribes. So from a compliance perspective, that was necessary. It is necessary in order to combat financial crime. You need to know who your customers are and who they are owned by, because that is a financial crime risk that we need to manage as financial institutions. So the experience, I would say, was positive. Yes, in certain instances, customer experience wasn't as desired, but that was never deliberate. If a customer was blocked and they were not aware, it is because possibly they were not reachable or they did not read the correspondence that was sent to them when the bank made attempts to contact them. And in as far as I'm concerned and the rest of the sector, it was the right thing to do as we continue to focus on protecting the financial sector and deposits of our customers. Impact on growth of regulatory environment. Like I said, one of the things that we pride the Ugandan financial market sector for is proactiveness of the regulator. If you recall, in the month of March, as a response to the currency fluctuations, unprecedented currency fluctuations, we saw of around 5% in February, the regulator moved quite swiftly to move the CBR rate up to 10%, and that was necessary in order to ensure there was financial stability in the financial markets from an exchange rate perspective. As you know, we are a net importing country. So to the extent that the exchange rate spirals out of control, there is a multiplier effect in terms of it impacting the cost of importation, the cost of products, which ultimately would lead to an increase in inflation. So from a response perspective, I would honestly, without doubt, say that our regulator is constantly on the ball and monitoring the financial markets to ensure that there is stability. And it speaks to the economic growth, I think, that we've been able to consistently deliver during the COVID era and post the COVID era. If you look at the growth trajectory, 3.5% in 2020, 5.3% in the previous year, and a projection of 6% in terms of growth this year. I will allow Michael to speak to the cost. I think there was a question around the breakdown of that and the impact thereof. Michael?
Okay. Thank you very much. Maybe before I speak to the cost, there was a question on the grey list, the FATF. I think what's happening is the world today is taking recognition that we need to step out corruption and ensure that there's transparency. So the exercise that you saw was countrywide, if not global, because we've seen a number of countries go on to that list and some get off. But this time we were off. And why were we off? Because there's a requirement that we need to know, or there is a need to know who owns specific organizations. And that responsibility lies in URSB, and we are just partners to try and implement that. Collectively, we achieved what we achieved as an industry, as the whole economy getting off the FATF list. And I think for me that was a good thing. The other one around the regulation is the 150 billion requirement, and I think you did allude to some banks getting off or being downgraded, as you called it. Happy to note that for us, we actually had about 124 billion shillings from the time that announcement was done, and we just needed to make book entries to try and comply with that. So in a sense, we're already complying. But the key message there is for a bank to operate in this market, they need to be able to take on certain shocks in the system, and that is a reflection in their capital. So happy to say that we are already complying. We complied way in advance, and our numbers, specifically around impairment, show that there will not be any effect or challenge in that direction. On to the questions around costs. Yes, we take note. We did have one legal incident where we had to make a provision we had not anticipated. I should say we are still appealing that case, but the requirements of accounting meant that we needed to provide for that. But that was a one-off, but more importantly, or significantly, was the fact that we did invest in our staff, not customers. So we have a policy in Absa whereby at the end of 5 years, it's now 4 years, all those who will be around will have an opportunity to be shareholders in the bank. And we've started accruing for that money. So that was a decision that was taken as group, and the bank accrues for that to try and ensure that even as you're working, you work like a shareholder. You're involved, you're part and parcel of the journey. So that's a strategic investment we did make, and yeah, it did cost us something. But also more importantly, we have been calling the press so many times. I think we're one of those banks that launch products more or less every other month. Just recently, we did launch the only bank around doing Visa Direct. You can send money off your Visa card to any other Visa card anywhere in the world. Those cost some money. We shall continue to be creative to ensure that we invest in these channels as we balance that. So that is a good cost, because then our customers will enjoy our services and ensure that we are providing competitive returns. Thank you. Oh, there was one on SME. Sorry, I picked the one of SMEs. I think specifically for the numbers, we shall share the numbers after this for SME. I don't remember the other one. You talked about ratios.
So the question was around, I think, the breakdown of our portfolio, looking at, lending to SMEs versus corporates versus individuals. Is that the question? All right. So I think as I presented, one of the things that I indicated is that we have an exposure of around 1.7 trillion. 24% of that is loans to individuals, and I indicated that 76% represents loans to corporates and SMEs. Out of that, we have a portfolio of about 250 billion, which accounts for about 14% of our overall lending. So 14% is to SMEs and small businesses, and the balance of 62% is to corporates. I hope that provides, some context in terms of the breakdown of the loan portfolio.
Employees becoming shareholders of the bank, I would want figures. As of yesterday, what was the holding and the value of employees strictly of Absa Uganda?
So we've got about 1,900 employees. And the hope is that by the end of 5 years, we have retained a number and they are becoming shareholders. Actually, even those who are joining us today. I think the listing was 2% at group. 2% at group. That's the market capitalization. So 2% of the group shareholding will be owned by Absa staff across Africa. And that's the accrual. So we can do the maths, and we do the capitalization, we do the accrual each year to try and ensure, come 4 years away, as long as you're still part of the bank, you should be able to get a shareholding close to about 40 million shillings at that point in time. That will be subject to the share price. Yeah, that's what I can say. For each customer, for each staff, sorry.
Thank you once again. I have another bunch of questions. They're about 3, 4. One is that can you provide an overview of Absa Bank Uganda's financial performance in 2023, including the key highlights and challenges faced? Maybe the other one. I know some of these things you've already tackled them. The other one is about could you elaborate any specific sectors or segments that performed exceptionally well or underperformed in 2023? Thank you.
Okay, challenges. Very competitive environment. If you did see the net interest income is a reflection of the asks from customers. Customers require a better return for their money. There's also the fact that a number of investment opportunities have come up. Some of us are investing in government securities directly. So hence, you are not keeping money in the bank and putting in those channels. And as a result, there have been margin pressures because of the ask. The other one is the fact that, of course, being the environment we are in, the customers are still asking for lower interest rates. And that's something that we continue to work with. And that is reflected in the number that we did post, where we're just showing about 2-3% growth in our net interest income, despite the fact that we have grown by about 13% on our loans. So that's a reflection that we are doing more at a less return in terms of lending. So if there's a challenge in that regard, that's something to think about. Generally, the exchange rate was stable. For 2023, we have seen some turbulence at the beginning of the year, but the key message there was we were there to provide solutions for the customers. And that's part of the non-funded income number. So yes, from a customer perspective, they needed to start hedging themselves against exchange or interest rate risk, which we did provide solutions for. Lastly, of course, the cost is the inflation and the general ability to pay. I think looking at our environment, yes, we've come out of COVID, but we continue to see some pressures in the economy in terms of the cost of doing business, and that is for us as well as our customers. And once it falls on the customers, you have much more probably difficult engaging discussions to try and ensure that the customers pay up. But I think for us, it's a good story to try and ensure that we keep the impairment numbers as we have done, and we should continue to see that as well. Thank you. Yeah, the second one was around doing very well as well. I think part of the presentation had the deal with Airtel, so clearly a reflection of our relationships with the corporates. But we also did see good traction in terms of business banking, and this is where the SME segment falls. We've seen continued lending in that direction, and the engagements continue. I think in terms of retail, the retail customer is still cautious, trying to ensure that there is stability and caution. So we have seen growth in that area, but in comparison to the others, I think the corporate or wholesale side seemingly is doing much better. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. The last one, okay.
Has Absa got a deliberate project and program to deal with the mama mbogas in Nakawa? These ones who borrow in the morning and then maybe in the evening they pay. And how are you taking that product to them? I see some banks have tapped into that area, which touches the mama mbogas, and the product seems to be successful.
Excellent. Very good question. We are cognizant of that market segment. Because of strategic reasons, I wouldn't want to comment, but that's something that we shall be speaking about very soon. But that's a key area of focus for us to try and ensure that, especially SME, where Uganda is well known, we should be able to support and that mechanism of ensuring that people can borrow in the morning and paying back later is something we are working on. We shall keep you posted. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. A very engaging session. I think for the management, we can ask you to clap for the fourth estate. Thank you so much for asking the questions. It's always good. It shows that you have paid attention and you're very interested in Absa's performance. So we thank you for that. Allow me to thank Mumba and Michael for being extremely articulate and sitting in those hot seats without feeling the heat. You have been able to address all the questions thrown at you, but most importantly, you have been able to represent and tell our story exceedingly well. So well done, Mumba, and well done, Michael. I would like to also thank the colleagues that are here, that have been here since morning, and the ones that have joined us online, plus our clients that have joined us online to be able to hear how we did in 2023. Allow me to introduce Brenda Muchunguzi. She's representing our head of HR. I left you out in the beginning, but you're very welcome, and thank you for being part of the session. We have come to the end of the session, and allow me to close it at this point in time. We thank you so much once again, and we wish you a great 2024. Thank you. Bye-bye. Management team members, you need a class photo. Please come up here on stage for class photo. Thank you.